Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, so this morning I shot a video about my anxieties about returning home to the United States, where I'll have to get behind the wheel of a car again. There's really no escaping that. I really love my job at the community college, and I'll have to see if I can move a little bit closer. I'll get to that in a second on why I might move closer now that I think about it. But one of the big reasons, or two big reasons I want to 86 driving out of my life eventually, is that number one, the financial cost burden. I didn't really think about it until I was here in Taiwan, actually. I had gone to, here in Taiwan, we have a really good subway station, and a subway system, and it costs about 40 US dollars a month. And I was thinking, gee, I spend more than that just washing my fucking car. Not to speak of gas, insurance, all the other expenses that go, the car payment if I took out a loan, or the opportunity costs of the money, whatever you wanted to call it. Just washing the car, I can get all my transportation needs here in Taiwan. It really was that big a difference. I'm not exaggerating. For the cost of washing my car, I get all my transportation here. Now, there is one difference, though. Over in the States, the car can kind of double as a home if you run into an emergency. You can't do that with the subway. I will give it that, right? Hopefully, you'll never have to use it like that, though. But, okay, cost, and also the anxieties surrounding it. So, it kind of borders on cost, too. Not only is driving expensive, but the expenses often don't come in a predictable chunk, right? I know how much it costs to ride the subway. That's whatever it is, right? With cars, they throw expenses at you intermittently and unexpectedly, right? And which makes it really tricky. And also, I tend to get in a lot of difficulties. I'm not a reckless driver. I don't like to drive fast or anything, but I always get pulled over for a bunch of nonsense. Lights not working. You know, I live alone, so lights not working. I sometimes don't see, right? Or something that I didn't pay attention to, and even when I'm not breaking the rules, just seeing a cop car. I often, I'm far from being financially free, so seeing a cop car always gives me a lot of anxiety. I don't have any money. I often don't have time to deal with it either, and I don't have to deal with it. The other day, I was actually on the subway. I look out, and from Taipei to Tumsui, there's a section where you can see the outside world, and I was riding the train. I saw a police car, and my heart kind of seized up for a split second, because I'm so used to having my heart seize up when I see police cars when I'm on the road. And then I'm like, oh wait, I'm not driving. Great, I don't have to deal with that. And that was a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. And and then I remembered I only paid the equivalent of car washes for the privilege of being able to say hello to the police officer without worrying about getting a ticket. Right, that was a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. It really was. And then 2 months ago, my car finally died. I was driving a Kia Forte. I've had the car for 3 years. It doesn't help that I put a ton of miles on that car. There was a time when I lived out of the car. I moved from Seattle to Arizona with the car. I took multiple road trips with the car. I'll get back to the road trips because there's something I want to talk about in regard to using the car for road trips. And I also did a lot of gig work with the car. I love doing tutoring. And so you don't know when the car's gonna die. At least when the train dies on the track, you're never really that far away from the next one, right? You might be 5 minutes late. Hopefully you gave yourself enough time if it's a really important event, right? Oh, speaking of the important events, when I was driving a car, I never knew when the tires might blow or when the car might finally die on me. So if I had a really important event to go to, like a job interview, I would often show up hours early because just in case the car were to die, I could have another plan to get there. And that became a little bit of making memories for me, believe it or not. I a lot of when I first started returning to the dating scene last year, you guys remember, I would often show up to first dates multiple hours early. Now, not all of those first dates went anywhere, but all of them gave me a lasting memory of the time I spent by myself visiting a new area because I was so worried about being late. And so that became its own reward for that, if you will. Uh, but and ditto with the job interviews. I didn't score every job interview that I went to, but I always scored a memory of going there early. Now, my Kia Forte died, so I had the privilege of being able to review all of the expenses I ever spent on the car versus what I got out of it. And then I kind of mentally thought about how many hours I spent behind the wheel, all the stresses involved, and how it's affected my life. And I came up with a ballpark estimate that every mile I drive on the road has an opportunity cost of about $2 to $3. I'll go into more detail with the math. I have it all written down in the hotel room. I'll go into more detail in a future video. But I came up with a figure about $2.50 per mile in opportunity cost. And it really opened my eyes to some things I could do now that I have a number with that. For starters, I used to have a big fear of flying, but I was fearing the wrong stuff. A lot of times flying is a lot cheaper than all of the opportunities that costs that come with driving, especially if you're working with limited amounts of vacation time, right? You don't want to chew up a bunch of it by driving there, right? When I take on these gig jobs, like I sometimes like to look for tutoring, it's worth giving the family involved a good discount if they can come closer. Now that I think about it, now that I have the numbers on hand, right? And it also gives me a good number to think about when I think about how far I want to live from my job and how much of a compromise I'm willing to take in terms of the housing situation. I might have to live with roommates, obviously, so it gives me a number to work with now that I've calculated it. It was an eye opener. I mean, not all of this is money out the door, by the way. I also thought about, because remember last year I had difficulty with my dating life and I had to spend money in order for somebody else to set me up on the blind dates, right? So it's all interconnected, right? If I didn't spend all that time driving, I could have that time, reclaim that time back to myself. And you guys know my dating life is often a lot better in other parts of the world besides Phoenix. So I'll have to go back to the hotel to show how it's all calculated out. But it wasn't just numbers. Also, my eating disorders, right? A lot of times it's very hard to keep a good eating habit, hygiene, if you're driving all the time. And I did some Googling to find out how much net worth on average you lose for every extra pound overweight you are. And I'll have to go back to that. It was a lot of number crunching, but I love math like this. I might even use this as an example. I teach college level algebra, calculus, and I was kind of working it out not only for myself, but to use as a future lecture example, because this kind of stuff keeps the students engaged, right? Anyway, it was a little bit surprising to me, but hey, next time I want to go see a solar eclipse, I might fly out there instead of driving. Well, it's a little trickier than that, because if I fly there, I won't have my car over there, so it's a little bit more trickier than that, but gives me a number to work with now, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.